Everyone thinks corporate revenge is impossible, but I just turned my backstabbing manager into their company's biggest nightmare overnight. 3 years ago, I stumbled onto something big, not buy a nice car big, more like change my entire life. Big! I was working in tech, surrounded by endless meetings about quarterly targets and market penetration strategies. Everyone talked about innovation, but most ideas died in conference rooms faster than houseplants in windowless offices. My breakthrough came during a particularly boring lunch break. The billion-dollar market I'd been studying had a massive gap. Companies were throwing money at solutions that barely scratched the surface. Meanwhile, the real problem sat right there, waiting for someone to notice it. Well, I noticed. Early research hit different than I expected. The numbers weren't just good menked, they were ridiculous. Conservative estimates showed $1 million profit potential in the first year alone. Even my pessimistic calculations, the ones where everything goes wrong, still looked incredible. This wasn't wishful thinking or startup fantasy math. These were real projections based on actual market data. But here's what most people don't realize about having a breakthrough idea at work. Patent filings for new concepts have skyrocketed by over 60% in tech industries since 2020. Everyone's scrambling to protect their innovations because everyone knows ideas are the new gold rush. Yet most workplace environments treat employee creativity like free company property. The statistics get darker when you dig deeper. Only 1 out of 10 workplace ideas ever make it to upper management. Think about that ratio. 9 brilliant concepts die for every one that gets heard, and even getting heard doesn't guarantee anything. Most ideas that reach decision makers still get buried under corporate politics or budget concerns. Then there's the trust problem nobody talks about openly. Surveys consistently show that 3 out of 4 employees fear their ideas will be stolen at work. 3 out of 4? That means if you're sitting in a meeting with 3 other people, chances are everyone except maybe one person is worried about getting their creativity hijacked. The fear makes perfect sense when you understand how corporate hierarchies actually function. Managers hold all the cards when it comes to idea ownership. They control the narrative about who contributed what. They decide which names get attached to projects when presenting to executives. And let's be honest, they're usually the ones getting promoted based on successful innovations, regardless of who actually came up with them. My project felt different though. The research was solid. The profit potential was massive. The market timing couldn't have been better. Everything aligned perfectly for what should have been a career-defining moment. I'd done my homework, run the numbers twice, and built a compelling case for why this idea deserved serious investment. Looking back, I was incredibly naive about what would happen next. I believed that good ideas naturally rise to the top, that hard work gets rewarded, and that corporate environments operate on some basic level of fairness. I thought my biggest challenge would be convincing executives that the opportunity was real. I had no idea my real problem would be much closer to home. Sometimes the biggest threats to your success aren't market competition or technical challenges. Sometimes they're sitting right next to you in the office. My excitement about the million-dollar potential didn't last long. 3 days after presenting my idea, my manager called me into his office with that fake smile managers perfect in leadership training. He wanted to discuss some refinements to what he now called our project. Our project, the refinements were minor tweaks, changing a few technical specifications here, adjusting the timeline there. Nothing groundbreaking, but suddenly, every email about the project listed him as the primary contact. Every meeting invitation had his name first. The idea was slowly becoming his baby, and I was just the babysitter. Here's what nobody tells you about workplace dynamics. Managers are twice as likely as regular workers to take credit for others' ideas. It's not even close. They've mastered the art of collaborative language that sounds inclusive, but actually transfers ownership. We should explore this further because I've been thinking about this approach. Then there's the trust factor, which makes everything worse. A staggering 67% of employees have experienced workplace theft, and that includes intellectual theft. But here's the kicker. It's not the desperate entry-level workers you need to worry about. Higher-paid, trusted staff commit more workplace fraud than lower earners. The people with corner offices and expense accounts are often the ones with sticky fingers when it comes to ideas. My manager had been with the company for 8 years. He had leadership's ear. When he presented his refined concept to upper management, they loved it. Of course they did. It was still fundamentally my idea with his minor adjustments sprinkled on top. The most infuriating part? Most idea theft cases never lead to disciplinary action for managers. Companies protect their leadership investments. They'd rather sacrifice one individual contributor than admit they promoted someone who steals intellectual property. It's basic corporate math. Well, here's an interesting twist in the data. Employees working under 1 year are least likely to experience credit theft. Why? They're not trusted with big ideas yet. They're still in the honeymoon phase where managers actually mentor instead of pilfer. But once you prove you can generate valuable concepts, that's when the vultures circle. I watched my manager present quarterly updates on his project. He'd throw me occasional credit bones. Of course, I had great support from my team, but the narrative was clear. This was his innovation, his strategic thinking, his potential million-dollar win. The breaking point came during a company-wide meeting when the CEO mentioned the project specifically. He praised my manager's forward-thinking approach and entrepreneurial spirit. My manager nodded humbly, soaking up recognition that should have been mine. But sitting in that meeting, listening to my boss get credit for my brainchild, something shifted inside me. The frustration wasn't just personal anymore, it was fuel. And that fuel was about to power some very interesting decisions about what I'd do next. My anger wasn't just simmering anymore, it was boiling over like a pot left unattended. 3 weeks had passed since my manager presented his breakthrough idea to the executive team. 3 weeks of watching him bask in praise that should have been mine. The worst part? He kept asking me to help him develop it further. The audacity was breathtaking. But here's what really twisted the knife. Staying quiet felt like my only option. Victims of idea theft face an impossible choice. Speak up and risk being labeled a troublemaker, stay silent and watch your career dreams get stolen piece by piece. The pressure to keep your mouth shut is real, and it's crushing. Well, let me tell you about the financial hit. Stolen ideas don't just wound your pride, they demolish your wallet. The original creators can lose thousands in bonuses or promotions when someone else gets credit. My project was worth at least a $15,000 bonus, plus the promotion I'd been chasing for 2 years. That money wasn't just numbers on a paycheck, it represented my daughter's college fund and the vacation my family desperately needed. Then there's the legal reality that makes your blood boil even more. In the United States, fewer than 2% of workplace disputes about credit actually reach legal action. Why? Because most employees can't afford to fight their own companies in court. The system protects the powerful, not the people who actually create value. And the weird part is how this toxic environment kills innovation everywhere. When staff believe their ideas will be misused, they stop sharing them altogether. Companies complain about stagnant growth while actively creating cultures that punish creativity. It's like burning down your own house and wondering why you're cold. Social media became my unexpected outlet. I wasn't alone in this nightmare. Posts about managers stole my idea have spiked by 40% in the past year. The comments sections read like support groups for the intellectually robbed. Sarah from Portland watched her boss patent her process improvement. Mike from Dallas saw his marketing campaign win awards under someone else's name. The stories were everywhere, and they were infuriating. But scrolling through those posts did something unexpected. It gave me clarity instead of just company. These people weren't just venting, they were documenting a massive workplace crisis. Every stolen idea represented innovation being hijacked by people who contributed nothing except their position on an org chart. My frustration reached its breaking point during a team meeting when my manager casually mentioned his next big innovation. He was already planning to steal my follow-up concepts before I'd even fully developed them. The man had turned intellectual theft into his personal business model. That's when I realized something crucial. Fighting back wasn't just about getting revenge or even getting credit. It was about stopping a cycle that was destroying creativity across entire industries. Companies were hemorrhaging their best ideas to competitors because talented people were getting fed up and walking away. The question wasn't whether I should act, it was how far I was willing to go to protect what was mine. Little did I know, my answer would lead me straight into enemy territory. My frustration had reached a breaking point. But here's what nobody tells you about workplace betrayal. It doesn't just make you angry, it makes you dangerous. Well, dangerous in a completely legal way, of course. I started making calls, discreet ones. The kind where you accidentally mention you're exploring new opportunities. Funny how quickly headhunters return your calls when you drop hints about $1 million idea that's already proven itself. Then there's the reality most people don't grasp about corporate loyalty. It's a one-way street until it isn't. Companies preach teamwork and family values, but the second someone waves a better offer, those same companies start scrambling to match it. Makes sense, right? My first meeting was with TechFlow Industries, our biggest competitor. Their office looked eerily similar to ours, except their coffee was better and nobody seemed to be stealing anyone's lunch from the refrigerator. Small wins matter when you're plotting corporate revenge. The recruitment statistics are wild, by the way. One tech rival offered a 30% higher salary to lure away creators last year alone. But it's not just about money. These companies are hunting for proven ideas, and they're willing to pay premium prices for talent that comes preloaded with innovation. Let's not forget the irony here. My original company had spent months trying to water down my concept, adding committees and stakeholder input until it resembled something a kindergartner might sketch. Meanwhile, TechFlow's executives were practically drooling over the same idea within 20 minutes of my presentation. The weird part is how fast things moved once I made my intentions clear. 3 companies wanted to meet. 2 made preliminary offers before I'd even finished explaining the concept. And the funny thing about non-disclosure agreements, they often fail to stop idea leaks in practice, especially when the person carrying the idea is also carrying years of industry expertise. But here's where corporate paranoia gets entertaining. My manager, the same one who'd stolen my thunder, suddenly became very interested in my career development. Lunch invitations appeared in my calendar. Casual check-ins multiplied. He even complimented my shirt once, which was definitely a first. Trade secret lawsuits between rivals have increased by 18% in recent years, and most companies know it. They're terrified of losing valuable employees to competitors, especially ones carrying grudges and game-changing ideas. More than half of U.S. Fortune 500 companies have faced intellectual property theft disputes. That's a sobering statistic when you're sitting in legal meetings, signing documents that could reshape entire market segments. The negotiation process felt like playing chess with people who actually knew the rules, unlike my previous situation. TechFlow's team asked smart questions. They understood the technical challenges. They even laughed at my jokes, which might have been strategic but felt genuine enough. After 3 rounds of legal review, something incredible happened. They didn't just want my idea, they wanted to fast-track it. No committees, no endless revisions, just pure execution with resources I'd only dreamed about. What happened next changed everything, but not quite how I expected. 3 months later, I got the call that changed everything. The rival company's legal team had finished their review. They wanted to move forward, not just with a handshake deal, but with a real contract worth serious money. My hands were literally shaking when I signed those papers. The same idea my old manager had dismissed as unrealistic was now backed by millions in development funding. Makes sense, right? Sometimes the best revenge is just being right. But here's where things got interesting. The rival signed my idea after 3 rounds of legal review. That's not normal for most projects. They put it through more scrutiny than a presidential background check. Why? Because they knew exactly where this idea came from. They wanted 0 legal complications down the road. The development phase moved faster than anyone expected. My project outperformed forecasts, doubling first-year revenue targets. We're talking about numbers that made even seasoned executives do double takes. The product launched in 8 major markets simultaneously. Sales exploded from day one. Then the media caught wind of the story. Well, actually, I might have helped that along a little bit. Publicity about my story led to industry-wide debate on idea theft. Business journals ran features. LinkedIn posts went viral. Suddenly everyone was talking about workplace intellectual property rights. The coverage wasn't just feel-good fluff either. Major publications dug deep into corporate practices around employee innovation. They found patterns that made my experience look almost routine. Reporters started calling out companies by name. The pressure was building. Let's not forget what happened to my old workplace during all this chaos. The manager's company lost valuable accounts after the launch. Clients started questioning whether they wanted to work with an organization that couldn't recognize good ideas internally. Some contracts got canceled outright, others weren't renewed when they expired. The manager who stole my concept, his reputation took a serious hit. Industry insiders knew the story. Word travels fast in professional circles. His credibility dropped faster than a stone in water. Career advancement became significantly more challenging when everyone knows you take credit for other people's work. And the weird part is, my success created a ripple effect across the entire industry. More organizations now teach employees how to protect their ideas at work. Companies started implementing better documentation systems. Some even created anonymous suggestion programs with built-in credit protection. Training seminars on intellectual property rights became mandatory at several Fortune 500 companies. Legal departments began offering workshops on idea documentation. HR policies got updated to address innovation theft more directly. The conversation had shifted permanently. My story became a case study in business schools. Students analyze what went wrong at my old company and what went right with my decision to jump ship. Professors use it to teach about corporate culture and employee retention. The best part, I'm not the only one fighting back anymore. Other employees started speaking up about similar experiences. The power dynamic is shifting. Companies are finally realizing that stealing ideas costs them more than protecting innovators ever could. Sometimes taking the biggest risk leads to the biggest rewards.